Hello everyone, I would like to show you an exciting middle game from the 39th Soviet Union Chess Championship. Took place in Leningrad 1971 with the white pieces. Face that we should be somewhat familiar with is Leonid Stein, a fantastic chess player who died prematurely at age 39 on July 4th, 1973. To put him in a nutshell, Kasparov was moved to right, that Stein went beyond the bounds of Botvinnik and Smyslov's harmony, expanding the limits of our understanding of the game, changing our perception of the correlation of material and quality of position of situations with disrupted material and strategic balance, and created the grounds for the emergence of modern ultra-dynamic chess. So that is some endorsement to get coming from possibly the greatest chess player of all time. Stein was born in the Ukraine, and he became a master, not a grandmaster, but a master at 24. And that is late for a player to reach, his caliber, because in the 60s he was in the top 10 chess players in the world. He became an international grandmaster in 1962, won 3 Soviet championships, 1963, 65, and 67. Now, his career only spanned his elite level career only spanned about 12 years. So he did a whole lot in 12 years. He never made it to the candidates. He was close on several occasions. In 1962, in 1964 he qualified, but he was restricted by the number of candidates allowed from one country, coming from the Ukraine. And so that stopped him in 1964, and then 1967 he was eliminated on superior tie breaks. So he was one of those players like Keres, very strong, but it just wasn't in the stars, or it just wasn't meant to be for him. And that's unfortunate, but he's a very strong player, and his legacy lives on. I also went over a game that he played against Tal, a brilliant game in the same exact opening. So Stein had the white pieces. The black pieces was Leonid Shamkovich, and he's born in a Jewish family, Rostov-on-Don in the Soviet Union. And in 1965, he came to the USA via Israel and Canada, and he lived quite a long life, and he passed away in Brooklyn in 2005. Many of you may know Shamkovich from his books. He was a prolific author. There's at least 20 books with his name on it, discussing various openings. One is on Kasparov's opening repertoire. So that was his major contribution is in the literature department. But he was also a very, very strong chess player. He held the black pieces. This position right here that I want to discuss is from the English opening, and it looks innocuous. It looks pretty equal, but here, do not be tricked. White definitely has a slight advantage, and his advantage is in the central control. Notice how his bishop, I'm talking about white here, notice how white's bishop on b2 combined with the knight on f3 have great influence on the dark squares in the center. Okay? And notice how his pawns correspondingly on the light squares, the d3 pawn and the c4 pawn, grip the light squares. So right out of the opening, white seeks to grip the light squares in the English. That bishop on g2, it keeps the pawns from blocking the bishop usually, and grips those light squares. And then that fianchetto bishop puts pressure on the black queen side. So therefore, if Black then allows his dark squares to be controlled also, he will be in trouble not having control in the center here. This position also occurred. Now, this game is from 1971, as I recalled, but uh, this position occurred in 2017 between none other than the top players in the world, Levon Aronian and Magnus Carlsen, um, who had the black pieces here. And we're going to see, uh, what happened. I went over that game also. If you want to check on my playlist, Aronian and Carlsen went over the same middle game and discussed it in detail. In this game, Stein has just played d3, and Shamkovich played knight c6. Again, he's trying to mitigate the dark square influence of white. You have to fight for your share of the center. All right. So it's a matter of how we're gonna go about it. So soon as black starts contesting the dark squares, 95. Again, this is the same thing that happened in the game Aronian Carlsen. I'm not sure if Aronian was familiar with this game. Perhaps he was, or he just came up with his own, analysis. But I'm sure he probably was familiar with this position. So 95. Of course, the idea is to bust up the queen side, and for black, and handicap him with the ruined pawn structure, so that white can just clean up. In this position, Shamkovich opted for simplification when knight takes e5. It's very counterintuitive to allow this knight to capture here and have the pawns busted up, besides the bishop is here. In the game Aronian and Carlsen that took place in 2017, Carlsen opted for knight a5. How did that work out? Queen c1 by Aronian was played, queen c7. Trying to fight for the dark squares, knight d2. Knight e8, again contesting these squares. f4, knight d6, bishop c3, rook b8, queen a3, b6, and great move, giving up the bishop at the right time, ruining the pawn structure of Carlsen, then playing knight b3. And Aronian went on to win a fantastic game. And this, my friends, in this variation is basically what white is trying to do. White is not trying to checkmate black. This is not a king's gambit. And it's about patience. All right? And causing your opponent to have small weaknesses and cracks in the position, and then building your position gradually, controlling the central squares, not flooding the center with pawns, but controlling the important squares. And this was a model. So beautiful game. If you haven't seen that game, Aronian and Carlsen, check that out. Very similar to this one. So in this game, Shamkovich played knight takes e5. And after bishop takes e5, knight e8, again, similar ideas. Black is fighting for his share in the center of the board via these dark squares. Bishop takes g7, knight takes g7. So we have some simplification. But what's beautiful about this opening is that with all the simplification, right, and the symmetry in the position, black is under tremendous amount of pressure in this position because of this bishop. Alright, it's extremely hard to develop, and black has a lot on his plate. Knight c3. Again, all this control in the light squares. Right now, the dark squares are kind of up for grabs. Alright, nobody's really controlling them right now. Now, this pawn on c5 is the only representative really controlling the central dark squares. However, white's grip on the dark squares is quite telling. On the light squares. Shamkovich plays knight f5. Okay, of course, the idea again, going in the dark squares. One of the strategies in the English is that while white tries to take command of the light squares, black will adopt the dark square strategy. Rook b1, putting more pressure on the queen side. And notice too how Stein's moves are really simple, straightforward. Rook b8. Next move, queen a4, just real simple move. Right, the pawn is unprotected. The idea is to probe and to cause black to create weaknesses in this position. Okay. a6. This is exactly what white wants. Queen a3. Simple moves, right? Now you're attacking this pawn. How are you going to protect it? All right. One option is to move like queen d4, which doesn't move the pawns anymore. Okay, that might be a little better. But after queen d4, knight a4, and then the pawn is attacked again. Let's say queen d4, knight a4. So you have to do something at this point, either b6, which drops the pawn, right, or try to get aggressive with b5, which again drops the pawn, right. Then your other possibilities are to try to play dynamic and just ignore it. For instance, play a move like rook d8 or something. In all cases, white is better with real simple play. b6 was played instead. Real simple plan adopted by white. Rook b2, doubling up the rooks on the b file. This game is so simple that it's not even funny. Just how he slowly just causes black to just push those pawns forward, weaken the pawns, and then basically they walk toward their own demise. Knight d4, rook fb1, queen d6, desperately trying to hold the position together. And then here is the ultimate refutation of what black is trying to do on the dark squares, is just simply e3. This is again another facet of the hypermodern school of chess started by Reti, Nimzovich, Breyer, and others back in the early days, right? Is that by not committing the pawns too early, that you can have moves like this when you need them. Okay? Now e3 comes and the knight has to get out of the center. Knight e6. Okay, what about this pawn now? Knight d5, right? Notice how everything just fits in with the strategy. Controlling the light squares, right? And now white is dominating the entire center. So even this little resistance that black had on d4 is now contested by e3. So black doesn't even have that anymore. b5. Just desperation now. C takes b5, a takes b5, rook takes b5, right? That's the easiest win of a pawn that you will ever see, besides somebody just hanging a pawn. Okay, that's the easiest win of a pawn, right? Beside a sacrifice, especially between two grandmasters. Rook takes b5, rook takes b5, rook e8, and Stein went on to win this game. d4. Shamkovich goes into a lost ending. Queen takes a6. B takes a6. Simple stuff. Grabs another pawn. Rook b8. Knight drops back to c3. Rook b2. Bishop d5. This forces exchange of a set of pieces. Bishop takes c4, rook takes c3. Of course, this is like taking candy from a baby. Now bishop takes e6, inflicting more pawn weakness. Rook b5, preparing the advance of the a pawn. And e4, a6, pawn is running up the board. Rook a3 and rook b7, and Shamkovich had enough. After say king c8 or king c6, the the pawn on e7 is gonna fall. h7, it doesn't matter. Everything is up for grabs in black's camp at this point. So this is a game that I wanted to share with you. Some of these old classic games are just just amazing, just amazing. And you know, and I also like bringing up these old players because you never really gonna hear about them. You know, if somebody doesn't really talk about them or anything like that. So this is why I try to take the time to give you a little background on the players. So thank you for your patience. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. And please like, subscribe. You know, if you have some spare change, please donate, because I know chess lessons cost a lot of money. And you know, I could, like, you know, it's very helpful and encouraging, you know, to keep making more videos. So anyway, here's one to grow on. So I'll see you guys on the next video.